Thank you to our MCs. Thank you for the welcome to our EXICOM members, to the participants of the National Health Summit, National Health Sector Meeting, and of course the participant of the Patient Safety Summit. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I am delighted to be here to moderate this important discussion on patient engagement and empowerment. Patient engagement and empowerment are cornerstones of patient safety, and we are thrilled to have an esteemed panel of experts here to share their insights on this critical topic. To kick off our discussion, let's explore why patient engagement and empowerment are essential to ensuring patient safety. Patient engagement and empowerment are pillars of modern healthcare, emphasizing active patient participation in their care journey. This approach, characterized by collaborative decision-making between healthcare providers and patients, reduces the risk of medical errors and enhances overall care quality. Empowering patients involves equipping them with the tools, information, and confidence they need to understand their rights and make informed decisions. The Patient Safety Rights Charter was developed as part of World Patient Safety Day 2023, which aims to improve health outcomes and well-being. This charter highlights the importance of patient safety by outlining fundamental rights and principles to ensure high-quality care. It serves as a crucial resource for healthcare providers and patients alike, promoting safer healthcare practices and fostering a culture of safety and accountability within health systems worldwide. From a policy perspective, patient engagement and empowerment are increasingly recognized as key components of people-centered care models. This shift drives healthcare providers to adopt practices that prioritize patient involvement and accountability. I believe everyone in this room has heard of the Administrative Order number 2020-003. That's the strategic framework on the adoption of IPCHS, or Integrated People-Centered Health Services, in all health facilities. This policy actually identifies client engagement and empowerment as one of the key strategies to enhance the responsiveness of our health facilities to clients. For those participants who have implemented the standardized client experience survey tools in their regions and facilities, yung ating mga medical center chiefs po na gumagamit ng ganitong client experience survey tool, siguro naman halos lahat tayo dito gumagamit na nito. In the regions and facilities, we in Tondo Medical Center has implemented this as well. For 2 years now, I can say that it is a good measure of the responsiveness of healthcare workers and health facilities. As shown in the Department Circular number 2024-0064, second semester of 2023 IPCHS Responsiveness Report. The HFDB received 190,147 survey responses from 511 participating hospitals. And 68 of these hospitals are actually DOH hospitals. Remarkably, the nationwide client engagement and empowerment score for hospitals stands at an impressive 92.5%. Napakataas, no? Indicating an outstanding rating. However, 8% of clients rated their experiences as fair or poor, highlighting the need to bolster strategies, particularly in client engagement and empowerment initiatives, preserving autonomy and enhancing transactional experiences are areas where we can begin to make meaningful improvements. Now that we have a glimpse of the feedback from our patients in the hospitals, let us turn our attention to our esteemed panelists for further discussion and insights. So, we start the formal panel discussion. Ito na lang po ako. Mas kita ako dito kasi ni Dr. Loderes. Okay. So, we start with Ms. Joyce. Ms. Joyce first. Yes. How crucial are feedback mechanisms like the DOH hospital survey or hospitals employ the client experience survey in assessing the overall patient satisfaction? Ito po yung pinapasagutan namin sa mga pasyente at relatives whenever they-discharge po sila.
The annual survey, no? We have a lot of doctors here. Parang HbA1c yan, no? How the sentiment is over a certain amount of time, but the averaging of the sentiment of the patients. Of course, it's very important because it's a measure of how the patients are really experiencing the care that they give. Ganito na lang. There are a lot of attendees today. Right now, a lot of attendees, no? We're talking about patients, the most important thing. How many are actually listening to what we're saying right now? I mean, I'm here as an advocate for patients and what's happening in the hospitals. And we're collecting the voice of the patient, and that's why the feedback is important. We're asking for the voice of the patients. Crucial to ask for the voice of the patients. But what are we really doing on the ground about that feedback? But it starts with the survey. I think I'll just say that first. It starts with the survey. It starts with us measuring how they're feeling and experiencing the care that we're giving them. But more important is how we action upon the feedback that we're getting us in the healthcare industry. So yes, very important. Number two, the survey is very important too, because again, it's across a whole year. But more important actually is real-time answering and feedback to the patients. No? We're so ahead already, in terms of healthcare in a lot of different aspects globally. Healthcare is a right now thing, not anymore 6 months, 1 year after. So I think the survey will be very crucial, especially now that it's getting digitized. Dr. April, I was talking to Dr. April a few months before I got invited to this. I'm so happy to see the digital turnaround time for the survey. So it's looking really good, and I think it's going to be a very important resource for the hospitals.
And it's very important na standardized na po siya.
Yes, of course.
Kasi minsan iba-ibang hospital, iba-iba yung survey forms na nakukuha. And about digitalization, sa amin nga, tablet na yung ginagamit.
Exactly, right?
Indot na lang po siya yung ganyan. Kaysa susulat pa sila.
Okay.
Thank you very much for Ms. Joyce. For Professor Yolanda, with the passing of the Republic Act number 10918 or the Philippine Pharmacy Act, the overall practice of pharmaceutical care has been given more focus. Can you discuss the role of the pharmacist here and how this fosters patient engagement in healthcare? And can you help us picture how this is done?
Thank you very much for the question. Now, RA 10918 or the Pharmacy Act of 2016 is actually the new policy and regulatory framework for the pharmacy practice and education. Now, with this act, it had broadened the scope of pharmacy practice to really include patient-centered care, and that's what is known as pharmaceutical care. Now, I think most of you know the pharmacist as somebody dispensing the medicine. Very simple, and it's like more on the trade aspect. But the new law had re-professionalized the practice of pharmacy because we have looked into evidence-based services that will redound to positive health outcomes for patients, that will improve quality of life. And also, we have not forgotten the safety component in terms of the actual medicine. Kaya yung focus namin dito is the medication safety. And I think it's very clear from the strategic framework that medication safety is an important component of the whole patient safety. strategy. Now, in medication safety, we look at two things. One is the product and the other is the services. So when we say product, of course, we look at the safety, efficacy, and quality of the product itself. Because what's the point of having the right medicine prescribed by a doctor and then the right medicine dispensed by a pharmacist, but the quality of the medicine is either substandard, counterfeit, or has deteriorated due to poor storage. And that's why we could see that our concern for medication safety is two-pronged. One is the quality of the product itself and its proper management, whether in the health facility itself and even up to the point of production. So this issue of quality has to be transferred from one point to the other. And it has to be even at the level of the patient. Because remember that when the patient gets the medicine from the pharmacy, and then they are discharged, they have to take care of themselves, there is a tendency that instructions that are given or not given are not followed. And because of this, there will be the failure in achieving the expected therapeutic outcomes. And then another is that when they are not properly given the instruction on precautions, like we know that medicines have two sides. They have the therapeutic effect, but they have the adverse effect. And I couldn't think of any medicine without adverse effect. Even your safe paracetamol is not 100% safe. Because if you overdo taking medicine over 10 days, for example, on a 6 times 4 basis, actually, the patient there will be an effect on the liver. So you could see that these things are not known to the patients who are taking medicine. So this time, we want to highlight that in the new law, the pharmacists, in the course of dispensing, should be able to provide the proper advice. One is the proper intake of medicine. Second is the precaution, what to look for. Because, you know, this is already self-care. They have to administer the medicine and they have to see whether their symptoms are improving because of the use of medicine and whether there are symptoms of adverse effects. So it's up to them to know. But if they are not provided the right advice, the right information, I think they'll be at a loss. And that's the reason why we really, in the Philippine Pharmacists Association, we really are highlighting the role of the pharmacists and providing training for them. But again, on the other side, there should be consistency in doing this. And that's why the FDA that monitors the health facilities, particularly pharmacies, should be able to monitor and make sure that everyone follows. I could see that there is one victory. Remember the AMS, the Antimicrobial Stewardship Program? Because the FDA really they have released guidelines that no pharmacy should dispense without the prescription. And you know, what happened was, there was really improvement in the sense that we tried buying antibiotic from a drugstore. And then we were refused, And you know, I'm very happy that that happened because that means that they now understand the implication that if they give this to a patient without a prescription, the possibility of antimicrobial resistance could happen. So, kaya I think it is a positive action that we now have the pharmacy.
Thank you, ma'am. This was said. Kasi ang dami yung over-the-counter. And they don't even realize na they're buying medicines that are really not safe because of its adverse reaction. Sige. Maraming salamat po, ma'am. For Ms. Karen, what can leaders in the health sector like us do to engage and empower more patients to be involved in decisions about their treatment plans and healthcare management?
Hello. So for people whom I haven't met, I'm Karen and I lead the umbrella organization of about more than 50 patient organizations in the Philippines. So cross-cutting from hepatitis to NCDs. We're actually very thankful to DOH because we're now engaged already in several councils and technical working groups, Anti-Hospital Deposit Act, Patient Safety, Adult and Elderly Care, Hospice and Palliative, CPG Development, and we also have a representative in the HTA Council. So what I'm trying to say is the policy environment is shifting. So you're going to want to deal with patient groups or even individual patients, whether you like it or not, because increasingly we're having a voice. At the WHA Assembly, there's already a call for social participation, and you have to engage, whether you like it or not. So it's good to be ahead of the curve. It's good that we're talking about patient engagement and empowerment. Because I can tell you that we're also trying to build our own capacity. So Papo, we also want to send people to your councils and technical working groups who can, we talked about co-creation and co-production, somebody who can, contribute meaningfully to the discussions. We don't want to send a person who will just be there for the presence of Papo, who will just be your tick mark, diba, in your public consultation, but somebody who can really work with you in terms of looking at health policies and how patients, or now we call them people with lived experience, can make your policies better. Because patients or people with lived experience, they experience the disease on a daily basis. And we choose the patients or the people with lived experience who we send to your meetings. So if you're calling for a review of adult and elderly care, we send people who are working in that space. And I can tell you that it's hard because we work for free and we want to help other patients. But Papo, as the umbrella organization, we look at cross-cutting health policy issues. So hindi lang siya disease-specific, but things like patient safety, and our focus areas are patient rights, and I'm glad that I heard your introduction in terms of patient rights, no? And when I took a look at the European Charter for Patient Rights, our own charter, which the DOH started, no, actually needs 3 more areas, no? One is right to patient safety, which should be explicit in the Charter of Patient Rights. Second is right to unavoidable harm or suffering. And third would be right to compensation. And I'm not talking about just financial, but really, if there's an error and we need that governance in place, there's a mechanism to address the patient needs, not just for the moment, but also what about, for example, the case of that child who had, scalded in his private area. He will need reconstructive surgery. So that's what I'm talking about, no? So it's good that we're talking about this, and the fact that we're hosting, that the DOH is hosting a global ministerial summit means that, the Secretary of Health means business. The WHO, there's a global safety action plan, and we're being asked to report and be accountable to this. So it's happening, and so I'm glad we're having this conversation. So I think what we can do is just work together. We're happy to work. We've been with the technical working group since 2016, and academia is there, the private sector, of course. And we're happy to help in the summit next year. So we look forward to that.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. And sabi nga nila, at the end of the day, it's the patient's body that they treat. So they have to be, they have to participate in the decision making of what kind of treatment plan are they going to receive from the doctors, from the hospitals. Thank you, Ms. Karen. And that, by the way, it's a very noble, calling. kasi sabi niyo wala nang compensation. But we would like to thank you kasi kami partners din ng mga pasyente, but we need partners like you also. Thank you. So this is for Ms. Joyce. The question is for Ms. Joyce. From the projected findings, the one I mentioned a while ago, what are your recommendations and what can we do with the data from the client experience survey tools?
I think really looking at the pain points in the patient journey. I've seen, of course, since it's a DOH survey, I've seen how it's constructed and really identifying well the pain points of the journey, number one. Number two, your action plan. Again, I think the thing is a bias to action. Because we're private sector, so obviously we have a lot of targets. In the end, we look at the result, So bias to action. There's always 2 quick wins, 1 long-term strategic identification. Though from what I saw from the numbers, it really seems to be parang the lowest scoring is kind of the value for money. Parang ganun yung tama ba, So sa numbers, I took a quick look. So what does that mean? Patients feel like they're spending for something they're not getting totally back. Parang ganun kasi, as I'm seeing the numbers, That means the other factors are doing well on culture sensitivity, doing well on the other items, but that part doesn't mean. So what does that mean? Patients hard work, tama, diba? Transaction was worth the money, yun ang lowest, tama ba, Parang sa the lowest scoring, for my understanding, So what does that
worth
mean?
the money, transaction was worth the money.
Diba? So that's something that we're government, and again, private sector. It's something that we really have to address because when patients they give out of their hard work to get the healthcare they deserve. And versus a customer or a consumer, patients don't have the agency. They have to choose something. You can go to the department store, decide not to buy a Secosana bag, decide to buy Parisian shoes, but you cannot choose your healthcare that easily. You have to make a choice which is going to involve likely pain, likely emotional suffering for you and your family, and it's not that easy. So that's one thing that we have to show the patients, and that doesn't come actually with the best equipment. This value for money doesn't come always with the best equipment or the best nice-looking hospital. It comes with the basics. With a very clean hospital. I'm telling you, I'm staying in Emerald Hotel. Ang liit na hotel. It's not the Marison, But I know the amount I'm paying for it. I didn't expect to stay there. Naubusan ako. But the room is only this small. But it's so clean. Nagulat ako. Sabi ko, sulit ako dito sa kwarto. 1,700 a night lang yata, But that's what I'm saying. That's the value for money. Don't have to pay a lot or make everything look beautiful or have the best equipment as long as the equipment is running well. There's no downtime on the equipment, the turnaround time or the seamlessness of the patient coming in and out, and of course, the touch of the healthcare worker with the patient. That's the real value for money.
Yung huling sinabi niyo, ma'am, yung touch ng mga healthcare workers. Kasi the more that we have empathic, we're healthcare workers, yan ang talagang value for money. Yes, I agree with that. Sige po. For Professor Yolanda, what are the challenges that the pharmaceutical departments encounter with the ability of patients to buy medications through online shopping platforms? Very Aside from strict regulation, can you share some strategies that we can adopt to improve this situation?
I think with the pharmacy law, online selling of medicines was not included. So we are in the process of reviewing the RA 10918 to be able to cover even the selling of medicines online. Now, if you take a look at how other countries are doing it, actually those are available. Those like forms where they could get those venues where people can get medicine for convenience, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. But then again, there should be strict regulation that goes with it. So we look at the side of the pharmacy, and that's the pharmacy law, but we also look at the responsibility of the FDA to be able to monitor this. But they said it is very difficult. We have talked with people sa national police, no, and they say that it's very difficult because some of the medicines that are coming in are international, where they have no jurisdiction. They can only have power or authority over those that are in the Philippines. Kaya medyo ang problema ito is not just national, it's international. Kaya we have to put sa safety, as I've said, the policy component, and another is that the reporting system. That we have to report, whether it's pharmacy or the other professionals or the public, they should be able to report this because they are placing public safety in danger. So we have to consider that people have ready access to Shopee. Now there are already cases where Shopee and Lazada were involved. Now they try to rationalize that they're only a marketing platform. They are not dealing with the product, and that's the reason why we have to consider which government agency is in charge with the product, and that has the right to regulate and provide the guidelines and policies. So this is still a continuing problem, and I would say that there is still that. The continuing search for solutions, no? And we are looking at long term, but the immediate, saan mo huhulihin yun, no? And even Facebook in itself, they sell even the lifestyle, yung mga sildenafil citrate. Yung mga pampapayat, pandayat na wala man lang say ang health professional. So we're not in favor of that as a profession, and we would like that it also be controlled so that people will not be in danger.
Thank you, ma'am. So siguro dapat we have to look into the regulation of this medications. These are actually medications. Ozempic is being injected. And it is actually a treatment for diabetes. I should know I have diabetes. I'm being treated with Ozempic. But then, yung sa ibang mga kakilala ko, they use, for diet purposes, for dieting purposes. Pero kasi side effect siya adverse reaction siya. And they use the adverse reaction para dun sa kailangan nila. They want to, to get thinner, so yun ang ginagamit. So ayan na, nandiyan na actually, nandito yung ating dalawang execom members. So siguro nakikinig sila sa atin na these drugs are, they should be regulated. Parang strict regulation po. Ano ma'am? Sige. Okay. And then for Ms. Karen, again, how do you envision the future of patient engagement and empowerment in healthcare? And what changes would you like to see implemented to further enhance patient involvement in care decisions?
Ako siguro, beyond collecting the surveys, and patting ourselves that hey, we're getting a very good satisfaction, it's actually institutionalizing the participation of family and patients in the facilities. If you look at strategic objective number 4 of the Global Patient Safety Action Plan, it's very explicit that one measure is for a patient advocate or patient advocacy group to be part of the hospital boards. So, there's transparency because then the information that you can collect, whether it's incidents or risks, there's already a patient voice that's embedded in the decision making, because that's what we're advocating for, patient involvement in healthcare policy making. And if you look at many of the European countries, even Australia, which is nearer, and even Thailand for that matter, there's very strong patient representation in shaping policy. We're doing that now. But we don't have a MOA with DOH. We currently have a MOA with PhilHealth, but we're still working on it. Kasi one thing that I have not seen is including the presence of patient safety committees or officers as part of the PhilHealth accreditation, for example, or even DOH accreditation, because this will really send a message of the urgency to put patient safety plans in place. Now, of course, there will be hospitals who will be ahead of the curve, but these are the bigger hospitals. What about the smaller hospitals and those who are in the provinces? Who will look after the patient's welfare, and are they being protected, no? And being addressed in terms of engaging them. On the part of the patients, we're advocating for self-care. We want patients to take an active role in helping manage their condition. So we have webinars and meetings to talk about. So we have PPHA to talk about understanding your medications, etc. We have PhilHealth talking to us about benefits and entitlements and even responsibilities of patients. So we're also trying on our part to send the message to the patient that, hey, you have a responsibility. Hey, you can't be passive recipients of care. You need to be active. You need to ask the right questions. You need to read up, understand your disease condition, and if possible, join the support groups, because that's actually where you get the information. And it's also where they get information on who's issuing GL, guarantee letters, politicians, may pera na ba ulit ang mga government agencies for subsidies. So these are the things that happen within our network. And part of it also is building our patient leaders. So we invited 30 patient leaders to participate in a healthcare leadership and management course at the Asian Institute of Management, so that when we participate in these councils, we come ready. We talked about co-creation and co-production. So we want to also give our inputs and not just complaints. Kaya I guess natatakot majority of the facilities. Naku, pasyente, mahihingiin na naman yan, wala naman yung ginawa kundi mag-complain. So we're trying to change the narrative. We're trying to change the perception of your perception of patient groups and patient leaders, that we're actually here to help and collaborate rather than, take responsibility as well. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. In Papo, it's been hard. I've been helping Papo since 2015 when I took early retirement from my previous job, and it's been a struggle to be included in, even in the table, even being invited before such as this. But we're hoping that, this is the start already of what is a call for social participation in involving the patients in health policy making.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. So, I'd like to take off dun sa huling sinabi ninyo, mga complaints. Actually, that's part of patient experience also. And I would like to ask this question, sabi ko nga dun sa ating organizer. Medyo wala kasi dun sa binigay sa akin. But yung patient experience, especially yung negative, the negative part. Kasi usually kapag susulat yan sa mga survey forms namin, more of the positive. Or pag galit na yan, talagang medyo doon namin nakikita yung mga negatives. But mostly, kapag negative yung experience nila, they use the media, they use social media, they use different platforms ba, na para they can parang catch attention, hindi lang sa hospital, but also sabihin nila to the Department of Health, to the different senators, at up to the point na nahihiring na siya sa Senate, yung mga ganyan ba? So, tanong ko lang, what is your take on this?
Well, okay, before, my long experience actually was at the hospital. So, I used to be a colleague of Dr. Hogar. Actually, many years. I used to work at St. Luke's also, no, before transferring to Metro Pacific Health. I was there for over a decade. I was the complaints manager at that time. But now kasi I'm in the head office, no. So, nadaanan ko yan, report sa NBI, nadaanan ko na yan. Sinulatan ng DOH na sinagot ko, nadaanan ko na may nabawalang pasyente sa ospital. Lahat yan, nilaanan ko na. One thing, among everything, all my experiences of over my first year, I remember we had 700 complaints. Parang but that's big to small, no? Big to small. Even the smallest kasi we record. So 600 beds, kasi I started in global, 600 beds, naging 700 complaints the first year I came in as the complaints manager. But that wasn't my first role naman. And then we brought it down. The reason why patients go to the media is because the first touch that they have, they didn't feel heard. That's it. All the time. I've had like sentinel events. There are a lot of a range of sentinel events, and it doesn't go to the media if we talk to the patients properly. Every point they need contact, we communicate with them. Tell you a story, no? So, complaints manager, got a patient tagged as complaint precaution. Complaint precaution na siya. 8 o'clock na, December 25, tinawagan ako ng pasyente. I hate it here, don't like your nurses, you should be the only one I talk to. I don't know, September 25. But the thing is this patient of mine, 6 months siya, went through a whole course of cancer treatment. Terrible for the patient. There's a time na, I forgot what he was told, it was a couple of years ago, no, but he couldn't speak, he was communicating through an iPad. Mayaman, so like years ago, naka-iPad na siya, ganyan. Until finally discharged. And the day that he was discharged, I was like, yes, so happy he's gone. So happy he's gone. And then finally, after, so I stayed in St. Luke's again for 10 years, no? And finally elevated to a higher post, I got a promotion, so I wasn't the direct complaints manager anymore. My secretary, years later, no? All of a sudden, my secretary tells me, ma'am, may pasyente po, nandito, bibisitahin po kayo sa patient, ganyan. It's like, oh my gosh, nandito siya sa office. Parang niya ako nahanap bagong office na to sa hospital. Ako magreklamo ulit. And then the patient came to me, and tall guy, good looking na ulit. Gumaling na. Sabi niya sa akin, Joyce, I really apologize for the time we spent together before. I was so shocked. You know, it's like a businessman, I have control over everything in my life. But during the time I was in the hospital, I felt like I had no control. That's what happened. That's why I reacted that way. Like, of course, we're perfect. May reklamo talaga ako, but this is how I was as a patient. So I think to connect that to the media, it's just you really have to respond to each and every patient call. Kasi if it happened to you, any one of you, magbubok ka lang pag hindi kinausap. On the way here, busita ako sa Cebu Pacific kasi they didn't tell me to sit in the right place. Kasi got rescheduled my flight was cancelled. I had to move my flight. Di lang nila ako sinabihin na umupo doon sa isang proper area. Muntik na ako mag-iwan ng shuttle, palipat ng terminal. And that wouldn't kill me, right? But even more so for a patient, when you don't get to communicate with them well and talk to them well. So in response also to management naman of social media, if you're a complaints manager, you're handling complaints. If you have social media, there's just really a process to it. You go online, just like you see naman online, we follow the processes, and I used to follow the processes. Even now in Metro Pacific, there's a process that we follow. You respond directly to any posting, etc. with a message saying we'd like to connect with you in a direct message, and then you bring it down to the process of face-to-face already. Ganyan naman ang response sa lahat ng social media. And even the worst cases naman, they really get fixed in that There are very serious cases, like I said, I've had experience and the case went up all the way to the NBI, but that gets resolved kasi at a different level already. Usually that's lawyer to lawyer or something, that's something that gets resolved at a higher level. Pero meron, and it's getting less over the years because of the Data Privacy Act. Before, binibingo lahat, doctors are sleeping, nurses are sleeping, it stopped now. So that helped a lot over the last few years. But you cannot help it, actually. You cannot help it. People will do that because from the outset they don't feel heard, so they make themselves heard through social media.
Thank you. Ms. Karen?
Yeah, I agree that you need to address the patient's concern. So when there's a complaint that comes to me, the first thing I ask is, have you talked to the hospital management? Because it's important that we establish that they went through the proper protocol, right? And the cases that get elevated to media are actually legal cases already, unfortunately. So there was a complaint, for example, in NBI, or they filed something legally, then that's the only time it gets to social media. Because, syempre takot rin ng media, di ba, to publicize something that's not vetted or as a case already, because it could be hearsay, right? So that's one. But I think what I see here is an opportunity to provide a platform, not just for complaints, but also for good works, no? So yeah, both positive and negative, and that could serve as a motivator for healthcare workers. So in the UK, there's care.org UK, where there's a platform where you can submit your complaint or submit your your commendation. And that platform, which is a third party, can channel it to the right person. Because diba, we have this presidential action number. And if you notice, a lot of complaints about hospital facilities also go through that platform. And then one of the things that we want in PAPO is sort of a TripAdvisor rating for hospital facilities. I'm not sure that we're ready for that, but it's something that might come in the future, because I think it's about time that we empower patients to be able to identify. Kasi alam mo, sa totoo lang, we get questions like, sino okay na doktor? Saan okay na facility? Saan okay? So, it's also a platform to share information. And the intent is not to, shame anyone, shame any healthcare professional or facility, but it's really information sharing. So, there are models already out there, so it's also one thing that's coming. So, there's really a greater clamor for governance and transparency. And, with social media, it's just so easy for things to go viral. I don't support, bashing of healthcare professionals. We have a very limited number, but there has to be some way to stop the blame culture, but at the same time assign accountability. And Prof. Yoli was just talking to me about the proper terminology beyond the blame culture. Stop the blame culture. So I'll turn this over. And you can explain what you told me about the right culture, the just culture.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. Sige, Professor, parang meron kayong i-explain according to Ms. Karen.
Kasi sabi ko sa kanya, it used to be the punitive culture, isn't it? That we punish anyone. It's a question of who made the mistake and then punish the person. But when you say no blame culture, it's more like looking at why such error happened, and not looking first at the system more than the person. But I was telling Karen na in addition to the no blame culture, we are already discussing the term just culture, because of the different medication error, or I would say other medical errors. There is what we call intentional and unintentional. So in that case, whoever really committed it for wrong reason and is, he's thinking parang premeditated murder, parang ganun ba? Then that person has to be punished. I mean, there should be the right justice for that person. But for a person na unintentional, na the error is system-generated, rather than it could be a lapse in memory or something like heavy workload causing that, then that should be, there should be no blaming of that person. So it's a mix where there is that accountability and also the no blame culture, and we call it the just culture.
Thank you very much to our panelists for sharing your valuable insights and experiences on patient engagement and empowerment. Ang dami po natin na-discuss. And talagang alam natin na talagang kailangan talagang may patient empowerment, no? When we talk about patient safety. Okay, so your perspectives have shed light on innovative strategies that can significantly improve patient outcomes and satisfaction. We appreciate your time and contributions to this vital discussion. So once again, please give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you very much, Ms. Karen, Ms. Joyce, and Professor Yolanda. And thank you very much. I end this panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Estrella, for leading such an insightful discussion on patient engagement and empowerment. Now we